The worst advice I ever heard was number one, niche down, and number two, charge $10,000 for a logo. The only way to get trust with your client is by being fully transparent. To date, that project has probably brought in anywhere between $250,000 to $500,000 worth of work, and even 2 full-time jobs on top of that when I took a break.
Welcome, everybody, to Market to Me, the podcast where we break down how creatives and entrepreneurs turn their work into real brands and real opportunities. Today's guest is Rocky Roark, founder and design director of Blue Cyclops, an Atlanta-based brand studio. He spent 20 years, that's right, 20 years in this industry, branded some of the most recognized names in Bitcoin, and built a following by being relentlessly visible about the work, including the projects no one hired him to do. He's also a 2-time founder with 1 exit behind him, and somewhere in there, he found the time to build resources for solo creatives who never got taught the business side of this industry. Rocky has also received plenty of episodes with his Design Braid podcast and useful content on his YouTube channel. Today, we're going to get into brand strategy, building a reputation in public, AI, and why the best client he's ever had might be the one he invented himself. Rocky, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Blue Cyclops, not just a cool name. It also has a little bit more of a personal touch to you. Your mascot is a blue Cyclops, literally like it should be. And his name is Bob, right? Am I right, Bob? Yep. The Blue Cyclops?
Bob the Blue Cyclops.
When I say it was personal, it's that he was created when you were a child. Am I right?
Yep. What's funny is I actually forgot about him. Bob was my imaginary friend that I created when I was a kid. I have one small drawing. I don't even know where it is today, but one small drawing of him that I did. And he was supposed to be like a 50-foot tall blue Cyclops. And after a certain point, I forgot all about him. And then when I got into college, I started creating this avatar for myself. I called it an avatar because it wasn't a logo. Didn't really consider it a mascot. And it would happen to be a 50-foot tall blue Cyclops. From there, it just kind of like progressed and changed. And then when I struck out on my own in 2016, I decided to name my studio Blue Cyclops after him, and found the drawing when we were cleaning things out and rediscovered the fact that, wow, he's been with me for probably close to 30 years.
You would say not only is he your best friend, but he's your business partner.
Pretty much, yeah.
But from that, which is pretty cool, you have your imagination was started from way back then to now being in the creative industry. But one thing that I thought was you pretty much have balls to do this. You did the whole 30-day brand challenge, which, I mean, it ended up a little over, but you showed the world doing this. What was it that surprised you the most when you're looking back at it? And like, how nervous were you every day showing everything, the insides and outs, the insecurities, the positives? Can you share that information? Because that is, again, like I said, you have balls doing that out in the open.
For me, probably the hardest part was just coming up with content for each and every day, because anyone who works in branding or just design in general knows that not every single day you're going to have some major milestone that's going to be tweet worthy, let alone put into a reel. And so there were many days where I'm like, dear God, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to show? Like, there's nothing really happening. And so there were a few days that I ended up skipping just because like I wasn't even working on the project those days. I was working on client work or something else, or I might have been sick. There was a few days I was sick. The biggest learning lesson for me was just how many people gravitated towards it, because not a lot of people do that. They don't share that process. They don't share like the full bit. You might see people show like a 10-minute video on YouTube of an entire project, or you might have someone do a reel or two where they talk about a project from start to finish. But you don't see a lot of people showing the entire process live as they're going through it. I was inspired by, what was the guy's name? The Sailing Phoenix guy who was on Instagram. He fixed a boat and sailed it from Portland, I think, all the way down to Hawaii. And that kind of inspired me to do the series. And at the time I was, going through a rough patch. We were going through a famine cycle. And I was like, well, I don't have a lot of client work right now. Let's go ahead and just do this. This is something that I could easily put out there and easily create. Of course, it turned out to be a much bigger project than I thought it would be.
Everything looks great. If people don't go with me, I recommend Rocky,
I appreciate it.
Did you ever feel that you did receive some sort of negative backlash in putting it out in the public? Or did you feel like other people were encouraged, or you feel like you inspired others by doing this?
I think the only negative backlash, and I won't even call it backlash, but the only negative like feedback that I got from people was, all you're sharing right now is just work for you. You're not sharing like stuff for other people. You're not sharing like other client work. Even with like my side projects that I do, those projects are they always do really well and people always gravitate towards them. But when you're doing the branding for your own studio, I think that some people get fatigued with it a little bit, especially other designers or maybe non-designers actually get a little bit fatigued because they're like, okay, he's just creating this for a studio, whoop-de-doo. But when you go through and do like Bird Rock Brewing Company, where even though it's a fake brand, it's a side project, people get really excited because it could be something real and it could be something outside of design.
It's pretty much push marketing. People hate having that pushed to them. So it's kind of, that's what it is. Man, it's exhausting when you want to show off your own personal work or your own brand work. And then the response is, okay, I'm done, or unfollow, or thumbs down if you're showing it on YouTube. I think it's difficult, but I think people who in the business who know it or who know the marketing, they realize like this is important. It's crucial. You're pretty much the Wizard of Oz and you're showing behind the curtain. But what was interesting about that is that you dropped in a personal project, a side project, not a real project, Bird Rock Brewing, right? It's not a real company, but yet you treated it like a fantastic case study with mock-ups, designs, the whole shebang, and it looks phenomenal. What made you think that, hey, I should create a brewery project? Was it just you were trying to find more brewery clients, or were you like, hey, I just wanted to do something creative aside from the B2B and SaaS clients that I have coming along my way, or I just needed something different in my life?
Yeah, so that project started in 2019, and at the time I was actually pivoting Blue Cyclops. For the first few years, we were an illustration shop. Everything that I did and put out was illustration focused. And when I finally decided, you know what, I miss doing branding work, I want to get back into it, I didn't have any fresh work at all. And nobody was knocking on my door saying, hey, can you do branding? A lot of people didn't even know I could do branding. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just start creating some fun things on the side. We'll post it on Instagram. At the time, I had a much bigger following than I have today. And I would just put stuff out there. And then the biggest thing at the time is I lived in San Diego, California. And for those of you out there who don't know, San Diego is a massive brewery scene. Like the amount of breweries, I think they have the most breweries in the world in a single place.
And they have nice surf culture.
Exactly. And so I was like, you know what? I would love to do a brewery. I've always wanted to do some sort of work in that industry. Let me just go ahead and create it for myself. And I ended up creating the first rendition of Bird Rock Brewing Company. And I want to say it was like 3 or 4 days. And then since then, I've revisited it probably 4 or 5 times, slowly updating things as we go. And the case study on my website shows like not only the stuff I created in 2019, but stuff I created in like 2024. And the interesting thing about that, and this is what I always tell people, side projects are important, is to date, you know, that's been 7 years, I think. Yeah, 7 years ago, I started that. To date, that project has probably brought in anywhere between $250,000 to $500,000 worth of work, and even 2 full-time jobs on top of that when I took a break. And so side projects lead to so much more work than client work. And I think it's because we're passionate about side projects. No matter what anybody will tell you, you're not always going to be passionate about client work because you don't have final say. You have to go in directions that you might not be thrilled about, and that's fine. No matter what, the client is the client, and you have to put in the work that they want, or that you have to make certain decisions that they want and everything.
Exactly. So I've done a lot of work for Harley Davidson. I did a lot of the apparel collections for them, and I would sometimes hire out other freelancers who were in an apparel and merch world. And so if I would scan their website after things have been approved and been out in the public, sold, I would see the website and I would see that like, that's not the final version. That's not the approved version. I'm like, I know which one it is. I'm like, it's close, but that's not it. And it's because we're showing what we can do. What's the best option. And don't get me wrong. I know why they're doing it, what's what. But at the end of the day, it's still client work. And that's not what the client asked for. And it's the same with any other projects. And it just feels like that is a strong piece of advice for any designer, any creative, or any freelancer really, which you know what? Let me correct myself. I hate the word freelance because freelance, people really disassociate that. Word freelance has a negative connotation, I feel like. You're a business person. That's your business. You're a businessman, businesswoman. That's your business. Freelance is it's just what they call it. So I'm sorry. Little rant on that.
You're fine. I actually, one of my favorite terms that I'll use in private is I'll say that we're mercenaries rather than freelancers. And it's because at least for me, I'm not a yes person with my clients. I will push back. I will tell them they're wrong. I will stand up and say, listen, you paid me to do this. You came to me for my expertise. Here's my expertise. But I also know what hill not to die on at the same time. But I'm upfront with my clients like that. And so sometimes I'll refer to myself more as a mercenary than necessarily a freelancer. But of course, people are going to have negative connotations about every single term that you use. Freelancers, to me, that's okay.
It's okay, but I just feel like a lot of people, they especially when they start out, they don't feel like, I'm not a real business. I'm just, a solo person, they don't even call themselves a solo entrepreneur. They just a solopreneur or whatever. It feels so negative. It's like, no, you did this. It's your business. You're good to go. Like, you go get it. That shows the seniority that you have by pushing back and letting the clients know that, hey, you hired me for my expertise. My expertise is to guide you to do this and hit the end of the project and the goals correctly, not by being just another pixel pusher. It's good to hear people doing that. I think people should do that a little bit more. And it kind of helps separate them from others trying to win the pitches and everything. Just kind of shows them their knowledge.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And the thing is too, is whether you're a freelancer or you run your own studio, the big thing is that you can't let yourself be considered a cog in the machine, because you're not. No matter what, even if you have a client who's on retainer with you, you're still not part of a cog. You're a partner for them. It's very important for us to always distinguish ourselves as their partner, not just an employee or a contractor, because otherwise, if they lose that distinction, they completely start to unravel, and then you lose that respect. You lose that voice that you have when you're their partner.
But it's also important. I'm part of More Creative Academy, and I was able to network through that community and having coffee chats for like maybe the last 2 years. It's interesting to hear the creative minds and people talk about and just kind of what we're doing here. And just reminds me of a conversation I've had where I've mentioned that same scenario. You don't want to be a cog. You're not an employee. Mm-hmm. You are not an employee. If they're going to pay you that, because if a client, if on retainer or a bucket of hours and they ask for, hey, I need to know what you did. What am I paying you for? One thing is, fine, that's great. Is like at the end of the week or end of the month, whatever your terms are, you say, this is what I worked on. We're working on this. Boom, 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 boom. But they don't need to know every single, hey, I did this hour one. They don't need to know the minutia. They just need to know that you're taking care of the business. They're paying you. You're going to have it done, and the deadline that they need it by. It just feels like some people just need a fresh reminder that they know their stuff. They're go after it, get it. Like you said, you're not a cog. You are the advanced machinery that it came in to stamp it and then head on your way, but keep that relationship going, assuming it's
exactly.
You don't burn the bridge right there.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, like I've been freelancing now. Like I started freelancing when I was a teenager. I started in design when I was a teenager, and I have definitely burned bridges. Some of them should be burned. I will say that, but I always try to be very respectful with my clients. I always try, over deliver rather than under deliver. Sometimes though, you can't always make people happy, and you have to know when to step away, when to be like, you know what, we tried, we should just part ways and everything.
Exactly. I think a lot of people are afraid to fire the client because you get forced into that feast or famine mentality, where it's like, all right, well, if I lose this, then I'm down a client or whatever. And then I'm in the famine phase where I'm like a desperation mode, which sucks. But how important is pivoting? Because pivoting has been, and thinking about it a lot, speaking with other people other people have talked about it. You went from illustration only to branding. So do you feel that the pivot is important because you want to do more of, or because you see the more money value in it? Obviously you want to have both, but it feels like there's a level of happiness not being achieved, which is why you need a pivot, or something was going well and you have to pivot back. Like it feels like there's a little different levels of it.
So in my career, like I've worked in so many different areas of design. My first job was in high school during the Great Recession, where my mom lost her job. My teacher got me a job at a print shop, and I was their head artist, and I was basically cranking out t-shirt designs, business cards, koozie logos, just crazy, right? Then during college, I was a freelancer where I was doing work for anyone and everybody that needed work. Some things I would definitely never include in my portfolio or list of clients today. And then after college, I went to be a brand designer, lost that job, became a web designer, lost that job, and then full-time illustrator. And then when I decided to pivot there to become a brand designer, it was a mixture of having to and wanting to, because at the time I started noticing like illustration for startups was starting to dry up a little bit. And I knew I needed to diversify. And so I slowly started to go from illustration to do some branding work. I even picked up a couple of web design projects, and to the point where during the pandemic, I had basically gone to like 80% branding and web and only 20% illustration work. And I feel like, especially in this day and age is the time where we have to pivot. The biggest thing I tell people is the worst piece of advice that anyone can ever give is to niche down. And when I say that, like, yes, you can have a niche offering, but you cannot right now, especially with the economy, with AI, with politics, you can't just go in and say like, okay, I'm going to just create logo designs for gyms. Like, yes, there's tons of gyms out there, but they're not going to pay you a ton of money. They're not going to see the value in that. A lot of them aren't. And so you have to be able to diversify. You have to take on that lawyer client, or you have to do that retainer for that B2B SaaS company and everything. I'm sitting here right now and I've got, yes, I do a lot of B2B SaaS work, but I also have a client that I've worked with recently who's a law firm. I have another one that is to be honest, I don't even know fully what they do still to this day, but I take on small little projects for them. There's some sort of big financial firm and I do like small little design tasks.
It doesn't matter what they do as long as they pay you and
exactly
the check clears.
Yeah. We are in a time where there's a lot less feast periods and it's a lot more famine. And so right now as designers, we can't be picky about the projects that we take on, especially if we're coming out of a famine cycle. I just came out of a massive, probably the biggest famine cycle that I've had in my career. And I can tell you this right now, like, am I, being picky? Not really. Even though right now I'm actually doing pretty good in terms of client load, I will find extra time in order to give myself more padding, more runway and everything. And so the worst advice I ever heard was the two different pieces of worst advice was number one, niche down, and number two, charge $10,000 for a logo.
What? How dare you talk about the past like that? For those who know. But if you're still following me, I'd love to have you on.
We're not going to name who this is. I was a fan for a while and nowhere near a fan today.
So I think there's that piece of advice is difficult. Doing it, $10,000 for a logo when somebody else would be like, why wouldn't you do it for $9,000? Why wouldn't you do it for $5,000 or hell, $1,000 if it's in your, it covers all your costs and everything. It works for you and you can build that on and you can retain it as a client. So it's difficult. Not saying it's not possible, but it's hard to justify some of the advice that's out there. Some of the advice is useful with pushing back. And I've had a conversation with somebody who talking about something similar. It was just like, you got to keep asking open-ended questions where you could gather more of what they're actually looking for, where the scope actually opens up a bit. And then the price goes from $5,000 to eventually works its way up to like around that much. Again, it depends on the scope and what the client is and where they're at, what the business is at. A small mom and pop business, they're not doing that. They're using AI for their flyers. And that's okay because chances are the mom and pop down the store, that bodega, that coffee shop, whatever, they're not your ideal client.
Never would have hired you to begin with.
Exactly. Yep. Maybe there's other clients that would have appreciated it and they didn't have the time, but you would have to go in and step in and start building that relationship with them and discussing from there. But again, you got to find the clients that are willing to pay whatever you're worth. But so yeah, that one is a tough pill to swallow because it's like, it sounds all gravy, but it's not as easy as we're talking right now. It's easy. Rocky, this project, your law firm, they're lawyers. They make money. Charge them $20,000 a month for that retainer, right?
Will they take
easy.
it?
I don't know. Again, we're just talking. It means nothing. My father had a business, and I remember speaking with him about our project. I was on a big project I was trying to scope out, and I was going for him advice. He's like telling me like, "Hey, it's all BS. It's not real. It's just numbers. It's in the air. It only matters until they accept it and say yes and they sign it. Otherwise, you're throwing numbers in the air. Hey, this, that. It's fine. It's great. It's fun to throw out numbers, but it has to land. Like, obviously you're going to throw the number that's closest to what the client's budget is. But again, it's meaningless until you prove to them the value of that number and they see it and then they sign it. I mean, that's my take on it.
The biggest problem with the $10,000 for a logo is that most of the people who are listening are nowhere near that phase of their career. They're nowhere near that level. I'm sitting here right now and I know a lot of great brand designers, logo designers and everything. And most of them would never charge $10,000 for a logo. I think that a lot of people hear the story of, what was it, Paul Rand and the next logo for Steve Jobs and everything, and how I think it was like, over $100,000 for the logo and everything. And they're like, that's where I want to be. And I'm like, I don't want to be at that stage. I don't want to be charging that much for a single logo. To this day, I don't even do single logo projects. I do full identity projects. And that's because I like to create the whole thing. Just create the cover art. I want to create the full story.
Well, brand system is fun. Visual, everything.
Because there you're solving a problem. You're solving like a real problem. A logo, like I could sit down right here and sketch out a logo in 5 minutes and say, okay, there you go. There's the final logo, right? But when you're actually building a whole system, a whole visual storytelling system, then it takes so much more, and it's solving a true problem for the client and everything. I charge for my work for a MVB, minimal viable brand. I charge anywhere between 5 to 10K. For a visual identity, anywhere between 10 to 2K. And now, do I always charge the large amounts? No. Like in those famine cycles, do I take on a full identity project for 10K or 5K? Sometimes I will, especially if it's a client who the project sounds fun and who they need help, but they can't afford it. I'm like, sometimes I'll give them a break. Sometimes I'll do that. But when someone tries to say every single logo project should be $10,000, look, if you sell 10 logo projects, you make $100,000. And it's like, yeah, it's all BS and it's tiring.
Let me just get your take on this. There's the idea also that every designer should be making $10,000 a month. Is that advice that people should be giving? I'm not saying it's not doable, but I'm just saying that that's another piece of advice I've been hearing. 10,000 a month is the goal, is to get that 100K at the end of the year. Doesn't matter if it's 10 $1,000 clients or one big $10,000 client. I'm just curious what your thoughts on it.
I think whoever came up with that number came up from the same person that we were just talking about, right? It's that same $10,000 logo thing. It's $10,000 a month. What you should be focusing on is, what do you need? Like, don't shoot for a number that's just arbitrary. Like, find out what you need and everything. And so if all you need is $5,000 a month, shoot for that. And then anything over that is just bonus, right? At one point in my career with my studio, and this was with having like a team and everything, the best month I ever had was, I want to say, and I'm fine sharing numbers and everything, just I hope the IRS isn't listening. I think the best month I ever had was like $75,000 recurring over the course of like maybe 2 or 3 months. It can change so quickly. Last year, at the start of the year, I was making $55,000 a month for my studio. I was taking home, I think I gave myself probably about what you said, 10K or so a month. The rest of it stayed in the business, creating runway. And in the span of 1 month, we lost 60% of that revenue. I had to fire one client, and another client 3 days later was like, hey, we actually have to go on indefinite hold. So 60% of that just disappeared pretty much overnight. And that can happen in an instance. And so we have to be very careful about what we're shooting for. So we have to know, like, what's the minimum we need to make? And then we need to know what is like our stretch goal, or what do we make to where we can actually take a vacation a couple times a year or take off a week or something like that.
Absolutely. I think, the cost of living is different everywhere, and everybody's going to have their own goals. You're completely right. I'm always curious what other people's take on it is. And it's fascinating. It really depends on, like you said, what do you need to keep your roof over your head, get your food, feed your family, and then have a little bit of a cushion if you can. It's tough out there right now. I go on LinkedIn, I see the news, it's more designers getting laid off. All these big companies, tech companies, just laying people off left and right. They were doing it 2-3 years ago as well. It's just now, it just feels like there's just a bigger influx of it. And you use Bird Rock as kind of a lead generating tool. Mm-hmm. Now, especially with this year being rough for plenty of designers. Have you found success now? And what have you found success in the past?
So it's interesting because what worked in the past had stopped working and now it's working again. And so first, before I answer that, let me just say this. From October of last year till March of this year, I had 0 new projects come in. The biggest dry spell I've ever had in my career. I've never had that where no new work came in. I had a couple leads come in, but I had 0 actual work coming in. And so I basically when it came to February of this year, I was like, I need to do something. I need to do something in order to change the tide and everything. And so I actually used AI. I built myself my own coach instead of paying $5,000 for a coach. I ended up turning around my business, and within 3 weeks, I had a signed client and everything. Now, is that going to work for everybody? No, it's not. It's hard to catch that lightning in the bottle and everything. But what I've found that is working and has worked for a long time is being present. And what I mean by that is I don't just mean posting like crazy. I mean consistently posting, sharing work, not just sharing thought leadership stuff, because I can share that all day, every day and everything, no problem. It's actually sharing what work you've done, what work you're doing and everything. And when you do that, people see that. They see the work that you've done, what you're doing, what you can do. And then they kind of have you stick in their mind a little bit. But you don't just do that. You don't just share work. You also have to engage with your network, with your audience. The biggest platform that I do this on is LinkedIn. So I'll be posting. I actually haven't posted in 3 weeks because I've actually been busy, luckily, for the last 3 weeks. But what I normally will do is I will post anywhere between 3 to 5 times a week, just once a day, never multiple times a day because it completely throws off their algorithm. And then what I'll do is I'll go and engage with anywhere between, and this is where it gets crazy, 20 to 50 posts on LinkedIn. And it's a mixture of other designers, people within my ICP, people who are in my referral network who have referred stuff to me or could refer stuff to me. And I just engage with their content. And then I'll even log the people that I engage with. I have a CRM where I log everyone I've engaged with. And then I have a setup to where it reminds me after anywhere from 3 to 5 days to reach out to that person. I send them a DM like, hey, how's everything going? I love that post you did. Here's a couple of thoughts or something like that. And I just have a conversation. I never go, hey, do you need some work? Hey, do you know someone that needs some work? I always engage and be human about it.
And Rocky, you're doing it wrong. You got to send the request and just force the work on you. Hey, do you need this right away? I could do this pretty cheap too for tomorrow. I could build your brand, Shopify and everything. Sorry. Just
no,
PTSD.
You're good. No, you're good. The thing is that I've been there. I've done that. I'll admit it. I've been there. Anytime that I've gotten real hardship, I have gone and done something like that. When I lost my job in 2014, I went and started reaching out to everyone and everyone. I probably sent out 50 DMs in the first hour. And within those DMs, I got 3 freelance projects. I got a job interview and everything. And it ended up getting me to California and getting my next job. It doesn't work always. If you just start going out every single day and saying, hey guys, do you know of anyone that needs work? People are going to get tired of you. They're going to have a sour taste in their mouth. Whenever you DM them or text them or call them, they're going to think that's all you're looking for, is you're looking for that. And we don't want that. We want to create relationships because that's what gives us the work. That's what makes referrals so strong.
Exactly. And to piggyback off that is that in that case with building relationships, I have a client who's waiting for them to close it, sign it. My statement of work's been sent out. These 2 partners, they didn't sign it because one of them was in the hospital. I was like, whoa. I was like, sure, let's push that back until you're out. No problem, whatever. I sent him a text like, hey, what's going on? How you feeling and everything? He was like, oh, did this guy ever get back to you? Well, I'm like, no, not yet. But I wasn't asking about that. I was wanting to make sure that you're okay.
Yep.
You good? Cool. All right. We could talk about that. We'll schedule a call tomorrow or send an email. It's again, the relationship. The relationship, I think people underestimate that. And it's a little bit tougher with LinkedIn, but if you speak to recruiters or any type of agency like that, they'll always tell you that you want, especially on LinkedIn, bump those numbers up. If you have less than 500 connections, crank it up. Go Matthew McConaughey, got to pump those numbers up. And
rookie numbers.
And then you got to start connecting. Even to this day, I still have a hard time reaching out to people because it's awkward. We have no idea. I will connect with you because I think we connect and I'll send a message anyway. I'll find something relatable to actually talk to them. Message like, hey, oh, you love saving foster dogs. Great. My dog was a foster dog. I saved it. And like, it's just good. I hope to connect with you on future posts and everything. Like, it's simple. Wasn't even expecting a response or even any type of work, but it was more like, hey, thanks. Good to know. It's all about staying top of mind. You have your own CRM. I have so simple Google spreadsheet. I have it 52 weeks and then the name, week 1. Who did I contact this week? And I'll just keep going. Oh, it's, we're on week 20. Let me go back and reach out to this person or, do it that way. Cause I try to keep just simple enough where I don't need to complicate myself. It's touching base. How are you doing? Again, it's relationship building.
See, I have ADHD, but I also have, and this is what most people don't realize, is I actually have crippling social anxiety for the most part. So for me, and I finally was able to break myself of this for the most part in like 2014, 2015 timeframe. But if I went to like some sort of event, if I had one person there that I knew, I could kind of like anchor to that person and I would be fine. I could talk, I could do all this stuff. If that person left, I would instantly start to shut down and I would like slowly start removing myself from the situation and everything. I remember I went to ValioCon in San Diego in 2014. Yeah, 2014. And I met this one guy, his name's Dustin, and we hit it off. We were texting back and forth, and he was the one that actually ended up getting me the job interview in San Diego. He told me, he was like, hey, just be the way that you were at the conference. And I'm like, I don't have an anchor there. I mean, I barely know him. I know him to an extent, but he's definitely not an anchor. So the whole flight from Savannah, Georgia, which is where I was living at the time, to San Diego, I kept saying to myself again and again, be that person, be that person, be that person. And I was saying this out loud, by the way. I was freaking out the people sitting next to me because they're just like, stewardess, he's muttering to himself. But by the time I got off the plane, I was able to be that person. I was able to break that anxiety and I was able to do it. And so when it comes to reaching out to people on social media, on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, I say, don't do it in a cold DM way, do it in a human way. But think about it this way. What's the worst that can happen? They ignore your connection request. They ignore your DM. That's the worst they can do.
Now, I'm just going to counter that, play a little devil's advocate on this one. Do you feel that your reputation will be kind of tarnished? Because there's been times where I've worked for a company and I know I've had to reach out to people and I was like, this price is so goddamn low. Like, it's going to hurt me when I leave the company to reach out to other people and be like, this dude lowballs everybody. Like, so there's a little bit of that for me, but do you feel that there might be some reputation of yours to be damaging, even though you might have superb reviews on your website, which everyone has superb reviews?
Yeah, everybody has it.
It's kind of the standard. If you don't have some sort of review from a client, even if it's just you're making up a name, Mr. Burgundy, Mr. R. Burgundy did something in San Diego, just make up a name, do something. But to get back to my point is like, do you feel that the reputation would be tarnished?
I feel like the only time that could happen is if you go at it in a cold DM way. You're sending out 1,000 DMs every day and it's all the same cold script and everything. The way that I do it is I'll send out a note whenever I do a connection request. Well, half the time I'll do a connection request with a note, and it's just like something simple. I'm like, Joe, it's great to see. I saw that we had some similar connections. Would love to connect with you. No sales pitch. That's it. And when I do that, I don't know the numbers because I'm not tracking every single person I'm sending a connection request to, but I'm constantly seeing more connections. I have well over 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. I'm probably closer to 6,000 by now.
Look at you go. God damn.
I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been using LinkedIn since probably 2013, and I'm always going through and doing connection requests.
I've used it too. I feel like I'm bumping up my numbers, but then I hear somebody do a little bit more. I'm like, okay, not enough. I
mean, I see people who we have 250 plus connections in common. So it's like when I see that, I'm like, clearly, we have a ton of people in common. We should connect and everything. And
either that or we have the same goals of the same tactics.
Yeah, we're just trying to do the same exact thing. And what I'll actually tell people is, once we connect, I'll be like, hey, thanks for connecting. Really great to to see you. Can't wait to follow along in your journey. And I'll usually leave it at that. I don't necessarily go out and try and talk to every single person on my connections list. If I did, that'd be a full-time job and I would probably go insane. But going in there and, seeing like, okay, I just connected with this person who works at this agency. They could be a great agency partner. I should at least like strike up a conversation with them. Or here's a founder of a company that I would love to help out. They have horrible branding. I would love to help them out and see if they need someone to help with that.
So how would you start those conversations? Those are two different conversations. Say I'm the art director or creative director at, a big time agency that you're interested in working with as white labeling under or whatever. How would you reach out to me from that perspective?
It would start the same way, where it's like first message would be just that. It'd be me saying like, hey Joe, great to connect with you. Love the work that you guys are doing at BS Agency. Would love to, follow along with your journey and everything. And if you ever need anything, I'm always here. Then stop at that, go maybe a few days or weeks even, and say, hey, I saw some of your recent posts. Great work that you guys are doing. Would love to maybe have a virtual coffee call if you're interested. No selling or anything. Just love to hear like the crazy voodoo that you guys are doing over there, because you guys are doing something right. So I'm literally buttering them up at that point. Virtual coffee calls, there's no commitment there. It's 15, 20 minutes.
The virtual calls, I got to get back to doing more of those because those were solid. They were just like, great. Hey, see, what do you do? What I do? Actually, I know a person who I'm going to reach out to after this, because it's one of the smartest and most helpful tactics. I remember being in contact with a food photographer. He does a lot of CPG brands and food branding. I'm like, cool. Like, I don't do that. I don't specialize in that. That's not the photography that I am capable of doing. At least from there, it's a connection, and vice versa. He knows what I do. So that's great. But now I have ugly branding, or I have a bad website or whatever. How would you come to me in that regard? Same tactic and be like,
very similar.
Oh, okay.
It would be very similar. Again, the goal would be to get them on a virtual coffee call. Like, that's always going to be the goal, whether it's a founder, whether it's an art director, even a freelancer. Because my most recent work has been from other freelancers, believe it or not. And so
it's a connection. So that's building the communities. That's your network.
Yeah. The key with that is with freelancers is you have to find people who do something that's not what you do.
Absolutely.
So, like, for instance, I had one friend of mine, he's a logo designer out of Europe, and he referred a client to me because he doesn't do visual identity design. He just does logos. And so he sent them my way. It turned into a brand sprint, and now they're coming on as a retainer. So I need to get him a fruit basket. But, it's crazy to see like how those interactions go. Another designer, he mostly does web and product design. He sent me the law firm project. And then he came to me again, was like, hey, I've got this project I would love for you to come on, do the visual identity for. I'll do the web work, and I've got someone else doing strategy. Let's make it work. And there you go. So a lot of people make this assumption that they should only be reaching out to agencies, or they should only be reaching out to founders or marketers and everything. No, you should be reaching out to a lot of different people. Cast a big net, especially if you're trying to get work. That's what you have to do. And when I don't have a lot of work, I'm scheduling probably anywhere between a dozen to 24 coffee calls per week if I can, or trying to get that many.
That's a good goal. One of my clients that I've had was through networking through a conference, a designer conference, where we're just a bunch of freelancers and creatives and all that. And it was like 10 years later, reached out to me or whatever, and be like, fantastic. All right, great. Like, that connection from long ago ended up working out for me. It's great. And it's fun because I've been on calls with people, like group calls, where there was a designer who's professor and agency owner. She finds the downside of like designer conferences. You're connected to other designers, other creatives, other illustrators or web designers. They're not specifically your ideal client. They're not going to be your ideal client, but they're not your client. For me, I was taken aback. I thought the same thing. Cast a wide net. Doesn't matter. Somebody out there will be overbooked where they will have to refer you. So it just feels like, no, you gotta be open-minded on that. Obviously, yeah, sure, you want Netflix as your retainer client, but if someone's going to offer you something else, take it. I mean, the one thing that was mentioned was going to like specific trade shows where you would try to, if you can, know what businesses are there, and then try to get a meeting with that person. I know, especially people when they do it at the licensing expo, they do that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a big deal to do that.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from people. I have a friend who owns a pretty good size agency, and that's what they do. Is they actually, part of their marketing strategy is to target a market, find out where the trade shows are going to be happening, and they'll go to the trade shows. They'll even set up a booth or something like that, and that's how they go about finding new work. Now, do they find success every single time they do it? No. There's plenty of times where they go to these things, they test out a market, and they realize, okay, this is not the right target client for us. We need to go and find someone else. For myself, I have done a lot of work in the Bitcoin space. I kind of lucked into that where I got a full-time job right after the pandemic, working as an art director for a Bitcoin company. I ended up doing their main brand and 3 other sub-brands for them. And then I ended up working with 3 other Bitcoin companies after them. And so I know the space. So if I wanted to, I could definitely go back into that space, go to all the events, and probably find more work and everything.
That's pretty cool work that you've done with all those Bitcoin companies. What was it? Acropolis is one of them. And what's the big one? I can't remember.
Unchained.
There we go. That one. Yeah. That I always like that full branding from the beginning to what they had to what you did before to the finalized version. I'm like, it's well done, and I love that you show the sketches and before and after and all. It's a really good case study for the Bitcoin area. I wouldn't think Bitcoin. I just feel crypto is but crypto is popular. Crypto's everywhere. It's a niche, but you shouldn't niche down.
Yep. Yep. No, and I stick to that. That you shouldn't niche down, but you can also have like multiple industries that you work in.
Absolutely.
I use the broad term of B2B SaaS, but I still work with other companies beyond that. With Bitcoin is one of those really specialized areas, and a lot of times, like at least when I got the job at the Bitcoin company at Unchained, they were very hesitant to bring me on because I didn't have experience with Bitcoin.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of times where I have clients that they come to me for work and they're like, hey, you don't have the experience in this. Why should we hire you? And I actually tell them it's a bonus because you sometimes need an outsider's perspective. Bitcoiners are very notorious for this, where they become so laser focused on Bitcoin that they freeze out like the actual things that businesses need to do, like marketing and strategy and all this. And so by bringing on someone who isn't a Bitcoiner or isn't someone who's obsessed with Bitcoin, that's actually very beneficial to them rather than detrimental, because otherwise you're just going to look like every single other Bitcoin brand out there. Every single Bitcoin brand I've worked with, they don't look like what the Bitcoiners looked like before I started doing it. They all look much better. They look more geared towards the financial institution side. And so they feel more matured and more trustworthy. And that's right now with any industry. Trust is the biggest issue that companies are going to run into, especially because of AI.
I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's a popular video where it's like you're having a virtual call with somebody and they look like they're AI. I think it's advanced, but it used to be you tell the person, I would be like, Rocky, can you put 3 fingers over your face? If it still shows your face, then they didn't deep fake it or whatever. They didn't mask it. It really looks weird. Like the guy's talking like a ventriloquist. Like, I didn't know why you don't believe me. I am not AI. This is who I am. I mean, I think that was pretty good myself, doing a little, not moving my lips. I gotta give props to that. I like that bonus tip. Like, hey, it's a bonus, because a lot of people are always wary about getting somebody who doesn't have the experience. And I feel like it's the same regardless. Like if you're doing that, you're branding, you're doing your research, you're sketching it out. You just have to dive a little bit deeper on understanding the industry a bit more. But everything's the same. I don't think you could tell me otherwise. It's not the same because you still follow the same process.
Yep. Yeah, that's the biggest thing is like when you're looking for a brand designer or studio, you have to look at their process. I feel like the biggest issue with a lot of websites for studios and freelancers is they show the finished product, but they don't talk about the process. Or if they do talk about process, they don't show a little glimpse of it. I actually created at the start of this year a Figma file where I showcase the full 4-week sprint that somebody goes through. They see the entire deliverable that a client sees from the first week all the way to the 4th week. So they get to see everything that's actually created, even the imperfections, the shitty sketches and everything. And they also get to see the case studies. I have more case studies in the document, testimonials, my process, all these things. And so they get to see what they're going to get. There's no behind the curtain type deal. I'm very transparent with what I do. And the reason why is because I believe that the only way to get trust with your client is by being fully transparent in everything.
The main thing is trust. And do people trust you? Do you like you?
Yep.
That's it. And since we were talking about trust and gaining the relationships through community, like friends, there was conferences. Let's talk about the big one in Columbus.
Yep.
Creative South. That is it's a fun one. I haven't been there in years.
So I've been going to Creative South now for, oh God, this was my 12th or 13th year, was this past year. And I've never missed a single one since my first one in 2013. And I don't ever plan to miss one. And for me, it's kind of like a pilgrimage. Every year I go to it. Now, do I go and listen to every single talk? No, I don't. There's been many times where I've gone to maybe 2 talks the entire time. This past year, I did the illustrations for it, the graphics for it and everything. And I got to go to more talks, but I also was behind the scenes. At the time, Mike Jones, his daughter, was going into labor with I think it was grandson. And he had a bunch of stuff to do. Me and Peter Del Tondo stepped up. I created all the graphics for all the slides. I worked with all the people working in the background and everything, and I got the stuff done.
So you did more than just like the whole themes, branding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I thought you just did just the brand, which, by the way, it's so cool. I kind of want to touch on that because it's.
Yeah, you can see it right back there.
Oh, I didn't even see it. Yeah, the tiki. Yep. Whose idea was it? I know every year, the cool thing about Creative South, if for those that don't know, it's a creative conference in Columbus, Georgia. I love taking the Atlanta flight from there to Columbus because it's like you go up and then you go down. Like within
it's very
20
quick.
minutes. It's super quick. It goes up, and once you hit your peak, you're on your way down. But what's cool is that they always have a different theme every year. One time they had gasoline, or they had the whole
it was like some sort of travel rural gas station theme. Yeah.
Yep. And then they had a video game, and then just like I can't remember. Carnival was one of them. It's fun because again, the whole idea is you build community. Hug necks is the popular slogan down there. So Mike Jones is doing a great job. Hey, Mike, if you're listening, want to come on? You volunteered, you dedicated yourself there. How did you end up gaining that connection where you got to do the full branding?
So I've been attending now since 2013, and I first met Mike when Creative South 2013 happened. I think there was like 100 people at the event. It was so sporadic to where they had 3 talks going at once. We were in this one building where you had different rooms and the different talks were happening, so you had to pick and choose. And so you were able to really like make connections with everybody. Made a connection with Mike. We were chatting quite a bit. After that, I was about to graduate college at the time. And so he was giving me a lot of advice. He was being very motivating. And so I just kept in touch with him, and I kept going, and he kept seeing me every single year to the point where I had set out this goal in 2014 that I wanted to do the branding for Creative South one year. My studio actually did the branding for the previous year. I didn't personally do it. Adam Grayson, who was working with me in a freelance capacity at the time, he did the branding for that one, which was this like diner kind of Waffle House type of theme. And then this year I was back to being solo. And so I was like, okay, I'll take it on. Originally it was going to be kind of like a Survivor theme, but then we were like, this is kind of too close to reality right now. So let's switch to like luau tiki type of scenario. To be honest, like I only created the tiki illustration and then create a few little assets, and we were able to expand it out from there. But it like leading up to the event, we were creating little bits and pieces. And then at the event, I had to step in and actually create even more graphics, like on the fly. I'm sitting in the hotel lobby. I had 2 computers set up because I had Claude going on one computer. I had design software on the other one. And I was trying to get all this stuff done in time for the actual conference. It's something that I love doing. I'm very passionate about, and everybody knows me as there's only 2 people, I think, 2 or 3 people, including myself, who've been to every single Creative South. And there's even someone who's been to there was a conference, they call it part of Creative South, but it was 1 or 2 small events that happened, and they've been to all of those. So those are ones that I missed out on.
That's always cool. I always find it awesome to just see the inspiration again and just connect with people. It's a fun time. And I do think that's a great place to just connect with people and build your network. You never know where it's going to come from.
Yeah,
And
and the other thing too is like you refill your creativity. That's what I see it as. Like
yeah,
when I go there, not just from the talks, but also from just the people. Like I constantly leave each year, and it's crazy now because like it's been over a decade since I first went, and every year I'm like, oh my God, it's over now. I have to wait a whole year for this. But at the same time, when I leave, I feel like the kind of like the creative mojo has been refilled because of the conference.
I remember the first one I went to, it was cool. It might have been when Draplin was having his infomercial talk for his new book, which it was like, all right, cool. It was promotion, big deal. Nothing against the guy. The guy's is a nice guy. I was like, really? It's your whole talk is just, okay, get it. You're trying to get sales. I do have it, so I guess it worked at some point. Time and now I have a different mindset, but what I didn't fully appreciate because I felt like I had it was a lot of like follow your passion talk. I'm like, that's great. Like you got to have the passion to even just do this, especially nowadays with AI being an issue or money's not there from clients or whatever. The passion's like a given. Let's remove that out of the talk. Like, hey, I got the passion, move forward. And I was kind of hoping for more practical advice. There were a couple people, more of the bigger headliners did have practical advice in their talks and like what they do. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like I was like, oh yeah, you should try to be on all the sales calls so you can see how the process is doing if you're starting. I'm like, duh, why wouldn't I do that? People find out one way or another, the hard way or not. It's grown out of that where people have provided some practical advice. It's a nice mixture of it all. So you can kind of get that, you feel good at the moment. All right, get you back on the horse, keep going. And like, oh, here's some tactics to actually help with my strategy to move forward.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that they've done over the years now is that they have really focused on what the topics are.
Fantastic.
Because I remember there was one year where there was a lot of talk about going from working full time to becoming a freelancer. And they got some feedback. Yeah, they got some feedback that, hey, I run this agency. I brought my whole team here, and now they all are talking about going full time freelance. So it's like, wait a minute, you got to remember who your audience is. It's not just freelancers and everything. There's a lot of people here who are full time employees at startups or agencies. You need to like kind of spread it out and everything. And they've done a really good job about like vetting, like, okay, these are the topics that we're going to have. And sometimes they'll even have topic themes where like they'll have like, a chunk of the talks deal with, one specific topic and another deals with another topic. But there has been like a few instances where people have gotten very negative about talks. There was a talk 1 or 2 years ago it was the first talk of the day, and it had to do with AI. And the amount of heat that talk got at the time, because evidently there was copywriters in the audience and they were afraid that their jobs were going to be, taken away.
Yeah.
And so they skipped the Q&A session because they were trying to stay on time. And someone was like, wait, where's the Q&A? We want to ask questions. And basically it was more of a shouting session of basically saying, you're telling people to use AI, but it's going to replace us and this and that and everything. And it's like, this person just got up on stage and talked in front of a bunch of people for an hour. And your first reaction is to just beat him up on something that he actually wasn't fully talking about. It's a little rough to see sometimes.
But it's good to see that there's an evolution. Every time they offer a forum for people who want to talk, it's interesting to see, want to look up. I'm like, could I attend this year? I'm not going to miss it. I got things lined up.
Yep.
But another thing, join us next time for part 2 and sign up to the newsletter to stay up to date.